Hey Year 7, welcome back to Mathematics. Today we're kicking off a new term with a new topic, which is called fractions. Today's lesson is on exploring fractions. We're going to start from basics and just look at what a fraction is and look at some key terms and skills that we're going to need throughout this entire topic. Okay, we're starting off here with a circle that I have cut into 3 equal pieces. So all of these 3 pieces are 1/3 of the shape. Now I've colored in 2/3 of them in green. This is to represent 2/3 of the shape. So we have 2/3. The way we write this as a fraction is we do a 2 over a 3. So we have 2 out of 3 or 2/3. Now we actually have special names in mathematics for the top and bottom of the fraction. We call the number on top the numerator, and the number on bottom we actually always call the denominator. Okay, numerator on top, denominator on bottom. And fun fact, there's even a special name for the line that separates the numerator and the denominator. It's called the vinculum. So there you go. I guarantee you've learned at least something today. So a line in the middle is called the vinculum. Okay, now one of the cool things about fractions is that we can actually write the fraction 2/3 without even using the number 2 or the number 3. We can do this with what's called an equivalent fraction. So I'm going to go back to my circle, and instead of cutting it into 3 pieces, I'm actually going to cut it into 6 pieces, like this. Now I have 4 of these 6 pieces colored in. So instead of 2 out of 3, I have 4 out of 6. But the amount of green has remained the same. What this tells us is that 2 out of 3 and 4 out of 6 must be the same fraction. So here we have 2/3 on the left and 4/6 on the right. As you can see, they are the same. They are called equivalent fractions. Okay, so we just saw how 2/3 and 4/6 are what's called equivalent fractions because they are the same size. Let's look at a few other ways that we can write 2/3 without using 2/3. So first one, we have 2/3 is equal to something out of 30. Now to translate equivalent fractions, it's all about multiplication and division. What I mean by that is, what number are we multiplying 3 by that turns it into 30? That's a nice easy one. We're multiplying by 10. What that tells us is if we do the same thing to the top of the fraction, we'll end up with an equivalent fraction. So 2 times 10 gets us 20, and 20 out of 30 is equivalent to 2 out of 3. In the middle one, we have 2 turning into 12, and we want to figure out what 3 turns into. So what are you multiplying 2 by that turns it into 12? From left to right, you are timesing by 6. So we'll do the same thing for the 3. 3 times 6 gets us 18. And there we have 12 out of 18 is equivalent to 2 out of 3. And for the third one, 2 out of 3 is turning into something out of 150. 3 is turning into 150 by multiplying by 50. 50, 100, 150. So the bottom number is multiplying by 50. Let's do the same thing to the top. 2 times 50 turns into 100. And there you have your equivalent fractions. Okay, let's look at a few different types of fractions we'll be encountering in this topic. The first one is the most common one. It's called a proper fraction. So a proper fraction is when the number on the top, which is the numerator, is smaller than the number on the bottom. Okay, so the denominator usually is the larger number. However, sometimes the numerator will be the larger number, and this is called an improper fraction. So 9/2 is an improper fraction. We have another way of writing improper fractions. We can write them as what's called a mixed numeral. So another way of writing 9/2 would be 4.5. This is a bit easier to see with a diagram. So right here, I've got a bunch of circles that I've cut into halves, and we can see 1, 2, 3, 4 whole circles, and then 1 half circle. So we have 4.5 circles. Another way we can look at this is we have all these circles cut into halves, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 halves. So we write 9/2, 9 halves. Easy way to convert between the two without a picture is we say to ourselves, okay, 9/2, how many times does 2 go into 9? The answer is it goes in 4 times because 4 times 2 is 8, and then there's 1 left over. So 2 into 9 goes 4 times with 1 remainder, so it's 1/2. Bottom number stays the same. If we're going backwards, a cool trick we can use to go from a mixed numeral to an improper fraction, we can do 2 multiplied by 4 is 8, 8 plus 1 is 9, and there's your top number. So these two multiply and then add on the top, and you've got your improper fraction. Okay, here we've got a couple of quick examples. The first one is asking us what fraction of this bar has been shaded or colored in. So let's have a look. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces colored in. We've got 3 pieces not colored in, so there must be 10 in total. So our fraction of the blue piece is going to be 7 out of 10, like this fraction. Okay, question 2 a bit trickier. We've got 3 whole bars, 2 of them have been fully colored in, and 1 of them has 2 pieces colored in and 3 pieces left blank. So we want to write this picture using a mixed numeral. So we have 2 whole pieces and the third piece is 2 out of 5. So our mixed numeral is going to be 2 and 2/5. If we wanted to translate this into a improper fraction, we can use our trick from before. We can go 5 multiplied by 2 is 10, add it on top, and we get 12 out of 5, which makes sense because we've got 12 little blue pieces. We have 12/5. Okay, up next, I want you to draw into your workbook for me. I want you to draw these grids. They are 3 by 4, so we've got 12 squares in total. I want you to draw 3 of them, and the first one, I want you to color in 1/6 of your shape, see if it's possible. For the middle one, I want you to try and color in 3/4, and the last one, you want to try and see what 2/3 looks like. See if you can do it. Okay, first one, if we color in 1 and then leave 5 blank, we will have 1/6 colored. We have to do it twice because we have 12 squares. So if you had 2 of them colored in and the rest left blank, that is what 1/6 of this shape looks like. So 1 out of 6 is the same thing as 2 out of 12. For the middle one, 3/4, luckily we have 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. So we can just color in 3 of them and then we have 3/4 filled in. So what we're seeing here is that 9 out of 12 is the same thing as 3 out of 4. Okay, and for the last one, 2 out of 3, conveniently we have 3 columns, so 3 vertical columns. So if we just color in 2 of them, we can easily do 2/3, and we can see that 8 out of 12 is equal to 2 out of 3, sorry. Okay, up next we're doing some comparing fractions. So we've got 4 pairs of fractions. In between them, we want to write either the less than symbol, the greater than symbol, or the equal to sign. So for the first one, what do you reckon is bigger out of 8/10 and 3/10? I know that the left-hand side is what I would rather get on my maths test rather than 3 out of 10 because 8 out of 10 is larger. So we'll do the greater than sign. Remember, the crocodile always eats the larger number. For the second one, it's a bit harder to see when the number on the bottom is not the same thing. So what I'm going to do is I'll take the left-hand side, which is the 3/5. I'm going to multiply the top and bottom by 2. So the top is going to turn into 6, which is 2 times 3, and the bottom is going to turn into 10, which is 2 times 5. Now, as long as you've multiplied the same number to top and bottom, you're not going to change the size of the fraction. These are equivalent fractions. So 3 out of 5 and 6 out of 10 are actually the same thing, so we can write an equal sign. We'll do that same trick again for the third one. What we're going to do is we'll take the left-hand side and we're going to multiply the top and bottom by 3. So we're going to get 3 out of 12. On the right-hand side, what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply the top and bottom by 4. So on the top, I get 4, and on the bottom, I get 12. The reason I've done that is because now on both sides, I've got fractions out of 12, and I can easily see that 3 out of 12 is less than 4 out of 12, so a quarter is less than a third. Or if you think about like a pizza, a quarter of a pizza is less than a third of a pizza, because you're having 1 out of 4 pieces instead of 1 out of 3 pieces. And for the fourth one, we're comparing a mixed numeral with an improper fraction. So we'll translate the right-hand side into a mixed numeral. So let's use our trick. How many times does 3 go into 4? It goes in once, and then there's 1 remainder. So we'll have 1 and 1 over 3. So what's larger out of a half and a third? Well, a half is bigger, so 1 1/2 is larger than 1 and 1/3. Okay, well, we're talking about comparing fractions and equivalent fractions. I've got a quick question for you. It's a trick question, try not to fall for it. The question is, if you were really, really hungry, Would you rather have 1/2 of a pizza, or would you rather have 4/8 of a pizza? So I've heard some people before say they would rather have 4/8 of a pizza, because wouldn't you rather have 4 slices than 1 slice? Which is a good argument, but actually it doesn't matter, because 1/2 and 4/8 are equivalent fractions. They are the same size. And I'll prove it to you. Here I've got 2 pizzas. I'm going to cut this left-hand one into halves. I'm going to cut the right-hand one into eighths. So here we have halves, and here we have eighths. Now 1/2 is the left-hand side, and over on the right, 4/8 is also the left-hand side. This is just another demonstration that you can sometimes have the same size or the same fraction using different numbers, and it's really important. So we're going to do some more practice with equivalent fractions right now. Okay, we're starting off. We're going to break down 40 out of 100. We're going to write it in 3 different ways. So the first one is 40 out of 100 equals something out of 50. So first thing to recognize is that 50 is half of 100. So what's half of 40? Well, it's 20. So 20 out of 50 is the same thing as 40 out of 100. Okay, what about getting from 40 down to 4? Well, we're knocking off one of the zeros, which means we're dividing by 10. Let's do the same thing on the bottom. Let's divide 100 by 10 by knocking off one of the zeros and turning it into 10. So 40 out of 100 is equivalent to 4 out of 10. And now for the last step, we're chopping 10 in half to turn it into 5. So half of 4 is 2. And there we have 2 out of 5 is a simple way of writing 40 out of 100. So when you get to a point where your numbers on the top and bottom can't get any smaller, we call this a simplified fraction. So 2 out of 5 is the simplified form of 40 out of 100. Let's try it again with B and C, or if you feel like you know what you're doing, you can pause and try B and C by yourself. Okay, for the top, we are turning 20 into 10. So once again, we are chopping that in half. So we'll do the same thing on the bottom. What's a half of 48? Well, it's 24. So 10 out of 24 is an equivalent fraction. Now 24 turning into 12 is being divided by 2 again. It's being cut in half. Half of 10 is 5, and now we have 5 out of 12 as our simplified version of 20 out of 48. And for the last one, same tricks again. We're doing 120 cut in half is 60. So we'll halve 80 and get it to 40. 40 halves to 20, so 60 halves to 30. So we've got 3 sets of equivalent fractions. And then 30 turning into 3 is being divided by 10. So 20 divided by 10 gets us 2. So 2/3 is the simplified version of 80 out of 120. Let's try a few more examples of simplifying fractions. Let's start off with the first one, 15 out of 20. So we can do these in one step if we are confident with our multiplication, our times tables. So question for you, what's a number that multiplies into both 15 and into 20? So a good answer here is 5, because the top number is 3 lots of 5 and the bottom is 4 lots of 5. So therefore we can simplify this as 3 out of 4. We've got 3 5s on the top and we've got 4 5s on the bottom. For question B, what's a number that multiplies into 9 and into 30? A good answer here would be 3. On the top we have 3 lots of 3, and on the bottom we have 10 lots of 3. So we've got 3 out of 10, 3 3s and 10 3s. So we're taking the top and bottom and we're dividing them both by 3, and there's our answer. As long as you multiply or divide by the same number to top and bottom, you don't change the value of the fraction. Okay, question C, whenever we've got a 0 on top and bottom, we can divide both top and bottom by 10 and get rid of the 0. So we've got 6 out of 14. Now 6 and 14 are both even numbers, so we can just cut them both in half and we can end up with 3 out of 7 as our simplified fraction. Okay, question D, what's a number that goes into 7 and into 35? A good answer here would probably be 7. On the top we've got 1 7, and on the bottom we have 5 7s. So we have 1 out of 5. Question E, we have 18 out of 27. What's a common factor of 18 and 27? Good answer here is going to be 9. We could do 3, but you always want to try and do the biggest number possible to save you some steps. So 18 is 2 lots of 9 and 27 is 3 lots of 9. So we have 2 out of 3. Okay, now on the bottom we have 1600 or 1600 out of 4000. Let's start off by crossing off 2 zeros off top and bottom. So we're essentially dividing by 100. So we get 16 out of 40. Now we say to ourselves, a number that goes into 16 and 40, Let's just go with 4. Up top we have 4 4s, and on the bottom we have 10 4s. So we have 4 out of 10, and because they are both even numbers, we can go ahead and simplify again down to 2 out of 5. Okay, cool. So always try and check that your answer can't be further simplified. Always look for even number on top and bottom because they're nice and easy to cut in half. Okay, if you feel like you're getting this, I want you to pause and have a go at simplifying these 6 fractions by yourself before I go through them and spoil the answers. Okay, question A, common factor of 4 and 20 is going to be 4. So we have 1 on the top and 5 on the bottom. So 1/5. Question B, common factor is 4. On the top we have 3 4s, and on the bottom we have 10 4s. So we got 3 out of 10. Question C, we have a common factor of 7. On the top we have 1, on the bottom we have 3. So it's 1 out of 3. Question D, we have a common factor of 50. 150 is 3 of them, and 100 is 2 of them. So we have 3 out of 2. Don't worry about writing it as a mixed numeral. There's nothing wrong with an improper fraction. It's a perfectly acceptable answer. Question E, our common factor on top and bottom is 5. We have 5 lots of 5 on the top, and we have 9 lots of 5 on the bottom. So we have 5 over 9. And question F, you can get there in one step if you're really, really clever, because you can see that the top is 32 times 1, and the bottom is actually 32 times 2. So this fraction will work out to be 1 out of 2, or a half. Okay, that's where we're going to leave it for today. Okay, thank you for watching today's lesson. There is some practice questions for you guys to have a go at on Google Classroom. Please have a go at that and let me know if you need any more help, and I'll see you guys later. Thank you.